Hello everybody, welcome to your lesson summary video on the quadratic formula. So we have learned a couple of methods for solving quadratic equations algebraically. One has been by rewriting the equation as factored form, equal to 0, and then using the zero product property. So in those examples, we factored our quadratic equation. It was set equal to 0, and then you can set each factor equal to 0 from the zero product property, making it pretty easy to solve. Another method we've learned is by completing the square. Some equations can be solved quickly with these methods, but many cannot. For example, we have 5x squared minus 3x minus 1 equals 0. The expression on the left, the 5x squared minus 3x minus 1, cannot be written in factored form with rational coefficients. Because the coefficients of the squared term, now the squared term is the term that has the x squared, the coefficient is a 5, so because that coefficient is not a perfect square, and the linear term, so linear term is the one that has the x raised to the first power, and because the linear term is an odd number, completing the square would be inconvenient and would result in a perfect square with fractions. So the quadratic formula can be used to find solutions to any quadratic equation, including those that are tricky to solve with other methods. So basically, quadratic formula can be used to solve every single quadratic equation, but there are times when maybe factoring or completing the square would be more convenient. So we tend to save the quadratic formula for our tricky problems. But let's go through and talk about that some more. For an equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c are numbers and a is not equal to 0, the solutions are given by, all right, so I was supposed to leave you guys some space right here. That is supposed to be where we're going to write in the quadratic formula. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So all quadratic equations that have this form, as long as you have it set equal to 0, so you can identify the a, the b, and the c coefficients, you can plug those into the quadratic formula and solve. So for example, we have 5x squared minus 3x minus 1 equals 0. So I think it's helpful off on the side to identify your a is equal to 5, our b is in front of the x, which is a negative 3, and our c is that negative 1. Now when we do the quadratic formula, we're going to plug those in. So x equals negative, and then our b is a negative 3, plus or minus the square root of negative 3 squared, just plugged in our b again, minus 4 times a, which is 5, times c, which is negative 1, all over 2 times a, which is 5. All right, when we simplify this, that negative 3 turns positive, so it's 3 plus or minus. And then I do like to figure out what this number underneath the square root will be. So a negative 3 squared is a positive 9. You're always going to get a positive number when you square whatever that is. So now it's going to be 9. And then what I do is I look at the next three numbers. It is subtraction, but that makes the 4 negative. So we have a negative 4 times 5 times a negative 1. Negative 4 times 5 is negative 20, times a negative 1 is a positive 20. So we're going to say plus 20. And then we know that back here we have the square root of a positive 29 all over 10. This plus or minus is representing two solutions for us. we could write this out separately and say that one solution is 3 plus the square root of 29 divided by 10, and the other one is 3 minus the square root of, not 10, 29, all over 10. So we can use this formula for simpler equations, like x squared minus 9x plus 8 equals 0. Again, you can use the quadratic formula for any quadratic equation, but it may not be the most efficient way. If the quadratic expression can easily be written in factored form or made into a perfect square, those methods may be preferable. So for example, x squared minus 9x plus 8 equals 0 can be written in factored form. There are factors of c that add up to b. So we would say x minus 8 times x minus 1, nope, yep, equals 0. And then we know that each of those by the zero product property would be set equal to 0. So right away, immediately, we know that our solutions are x equals a positive 8 and a positive 1. So we do want to take simpler methods when we recognize them, and then if the equation is pretty tricky, it's nice to know that we can always do the quadratic formula.